This program is sponsored in part by the National Catholic Society of Foresters. Welcome to Looking at Social Justice. Every week it's my joy to be interviewing someone for a half hour about some aspect of social justice in their personal and professional life. Well, today I have a guest, Benito Medrano, and what he'll be able to do is not give us only that half hour. We've decided we'll talk about one aspect of Benito's ministry here in the Diocese of Fresno. That aspect is going to be about the Quinto Encuentro, that fifth encounter of the Hispanic Church in the United States. We'll talk about the implications of that encounter with the Diocese of Fresno and with social justice. About Benito, I just want to say it is my joy to know that he and Roman Flores came to the diocese a year ago to do certain ministry positions in the Office of Formation and Evangelization. And it's been a blessing since their arrival last March to begin a wonderful ministry among us here in the diocese. Benito, can you tell us just a little bit to begin about what it means to be the coordinator of Hispanic ministry in this fantastically Hispanic diocese of Fresno? We're glad you're here. Tell us why you did decide to work for this diocese and what it is that in this first year you have been able to discover about it.
Jim, thank you very much for having me as a guest in your show. I'm very excited. I've seen a lot of the episodes, and I'm very excited to be here to be able to share with people a little bit of what the ministry that we do over here in the Diocese of Fresno. So, as you said, I am the Hispanic Ministry Coordinator, and that means mostly three things. That means mostly that one of the areas that I am that my work relates to is Pastoral Juvenil. So that is ministry with Hispanic youth and young adults. So far, after the process of the National Encuentro, that has been my main area of focus, because as we know, we cannot do every single thing at once. So I decided to take it by steps and focus on one, developing that area, and then moving on to the other ones, so that we can have something, an entire platform of work that we're doing. So that is one of the areas that we do. The other area is migrant ministry. So far, we have been focusing on the extraordinary aspect of migrant ministry, which focuses on catechetical formation for people who don't have access to the parishes. So people who live on the outskirts of the parish limits. You know, there are parishes, there are 5 parishes in the Diocese of Fresno that have different teams and communities in those areas far away from the parish that serve to people who are either on the move because they're working on the fields and they're moving along the state of California or even beyond, and they focus on people who have no access to the parish, either because of lack of transportation or whatever other limitations they might have to attend the sacramental preparation programs that they have over there. And then the last area of my work is to be a link to the apostolic movements that we have in our Diocese of Fresno, the Spanish-speaking apostolic movements. So those are mostly the 3 areas that I am in charge of. 3 things that I really enjoy because my life has been connected to these 3 things from the very beginning. And then, as you mentioned, right now, since 2016, we've been in the process of the 5th Encuentro, the Quinto Encuentro. So that is also one of the things that are part of my job, to follow along with this process, to make sure that we are participating in this process, and to make sure that all the conclusions that we've been seeing at the different levels of this encuentro are actually being bearing fruit within our ministry.
You know, every other guest I have, I'm always very glad to have them because they're all awesome, but I don't get to observe all the other guests like every single day. From his cubicle, which is just off of my office. It's like, there's Benito. And I get to see and appreciate what it is you've been doing in this first year, which I do hope gets to be I don't know if you're going to get 30 years like I have, but who knows how long you'll persevere, brother.
Thank you.
About your work, let's focus particularly right now, leaving much of what you just said for another show. Let's talk about the one experience that when you landed here, it was already in big movement forward, and you caught the wave as it was an urgent moment, this Quinto Encuentro. Tell us about what it was landing here and needing to get something to happen very soon, and it was all on you. Tell us about that.
Okay, so first of all, just to provide some kind of context, the encuentro processes, the encounter processes, those are, by now, they are a tradition within the Hispanic ministry in the United States. So this is the 5th one. That means that there have been other 4 in the past. The first one was in the 1970s. Then we had 2 in the 1980s. Then we had the 4th one in 2000. And then finally, this is the 5th one that started in 2016 and is going to go all the way to 2020. And the encuentro processes are a petition by the U.S. bishops. They are the ones who call forth an encuentro process whenever they see that we need to pay attention to the Hispanic community. In this specific case, the Quinto Encuentro, the 5th encounter, it's been focusing on, one, how do we reach out to the Hispanic community? How do we listen to their needs, to their challenges, to their dreams? And then how do we help them become missionary disciples of the church? So how do we reach out to them? How do we listen to them? And then how do we make them participants of the church, protagonists of the process of evangelization in the United States church? So that is, I think, like an introduction to the encuentros.
Needed to do that because it's like we're presuming that everyone knows even what Quinto Encuentro means. So thanks for reminding us it is the 5th. It goes back to the 70s, and you are the one right now leading, directing, coordinating our effort in our diocese to follow up what is the USCCB's leadership.
Yes.
So, how was it when you arrived? What became your immediate tasks and the very soon experience of that first part of the encuentro, the regional version?
Yes. So when I started working over here, that was February. In April, we had the regional encuentro. So before that, before I started working for the diocese, I was already the co-chair of the encuentro process in our diocese. So Brenda Noriega was leading the encuentro process in our diocese before she left to the Diocese of San Bernardino. And then I was the co-chair. So by the time I started working over here, I already knew how the process was going in the diocese. I already knew the parishes that were participating in the encuentro process. I had already read the comments and the voices of the people. So when I started working over here, 2 months before the regional encuentro, we were the diocese that was hosting the regional encuentro. That means that people from all over California, Nevada, and the Bishop of Hawaii were coming to have this gathering and continue discussing what are the priorities for the Hispanic community in the United States Church in our region. So we were in charge of dealing with all the logistics, the hotels, the reservation of the place where the event took place, the meals, the volunteers, the division of all the ministry areas that we were going to be discussing. So it was a lot of work, and I do remember how, I guess, it wasn't frustration, it was just anxiety and not knowing if everything was going to work all right. And the good thing is that Rosie Hernandez, my boss, the director of the Office of Formation and Evangelization, she was the one who was leading this process while my position was vacant. So when I started working, I just, I went with her and both of us kind of worked the last details of it. But I do remember feeling a lot of anxiety when people were arriving at in Visalia. So people were arriving, there were buses coming in from people. There were people overflowing the doors trying to register, find where the diocese was supposed to register. And I remember seeing Bishop Barnes. And Bishop Barnes, I'm a fan of Bishop Barnes. And then, so he said hi to me. He remembered my name. I felt like, okay, he remembers my name. And then he said, there's no need to worry about it. He said, the Holy Spirit is here because the people of God have arrived. As soon as he said that, I felt a relief of thinking that is true. So many times we think that the work of the Lord depends on us because we're the ones dealing with the logistics. And then at the end, we need reminders like this from our pastors that tell us, okay, it's God the one taking care of this. Let's just go with it. Let's do our best, and God is going to make sure that everything flows the way it should. So yeah, for the regional encuentro, we had over 1,300 people. We had 20 bishops and 2 cardinals coming to this encuentro, and we had people coming all over from the Diocese of California, Nevada, and we had the Bishop of Hawaii with us as well.
Just to second 2 people you mentioned is Brenda Noriega. Want to give a shout out to Brenda, who really, until moving to San Bernardino to be with Bishop Barnes and to be with Marciano Avila, did a wonderful job getting things up. And then Rosie Hernandez, your director, has been for 6 years now guiding your office in so many wonderful ways as a director. So you did get great support, but now tell us how it was as that encuentro, the regional version of it, was happening in Visalia. What were some of the major points raised, the major discussions, and the impact that you felt once that anxiety was gone, once Bishop Barnes put you at peace, and once you knew that those 1,300 people of God were on a straight path? How did that event progress?
Yeah. So all of the people that came to this encuentro, we had already decided what kind of ministry areas we wanted to discuss during the encuentro. So once we started, we had plenary sessions where everyone was present in the listening to the speaker, and then we also had smaller discussion groups focusing on different areas of ministry. So for sure, things that matter to the Hispanic community in the United States are things like education, vocations, things like immigration, social justice, things like leadership development, and how the apostolic movements can incorporate more into the church to work along with the vision that they want to create. So there were so many issues. There were 9 specific issues that we wanted to discuss in depth, listening to the voices of people who were either active or were very concerned about those issues. So, for example, we had social justice issues, where we discussed as many things that we could discuss under that label. For sure, the issue of immigration came a lot, not just in social justice, but also in the group that was discussing immigration.
So when you discuss immigration in a setting of the 5th encounter, the Quinto Encuentro, we would think we know how we would do it if it were a political rally. We'd know how it would be if it were a community organization thing like Faith in the Valley. How is it when the church gathered together in this encuentro? How is immigration discussed, dealt with, and experienced? What did you do about immigration?
So I would say that maybe the core value that where we start a conversation is human dignity. The human dignity that is inherent in absolutely every single person that is alive and has ever lived and will ever live. So once we look at the human dignity, then we have to ask ourselves as church, we as members of the church, how is it that God and the Gospels and the church are calling us to respond to what is going on in our specific circumstances, in our specific environment in the United States? How is it that the church, through the documents and through the teachings and through what our bishops tell us, are calling us to respond to the needs of the people, are calling us to respond to the worries of so many families, parents who are worried and concerned about their U.S.-born children? How is it that the church is calling us to accompany, to walk with the people who are suffering, even if we don't have the experience of being immigrants, even if we don't know what it feels like to leave your country and leave your family and leave everything you've ever known and come to the unknown, to a place where you don't even speak the language. Even if we haven't had that experience, how is it that I can walk with these people, just like Jesus walked with the disciples of Emmaus on the way to Emmaus? And that is actually the core passage. That is what underlies the spirituality of the Quinto Encuentro. Jesus walking with the disciples of Emmaus, Jesus accompanying these disciples, Jesus listening to these disciples, and at the moment of the breaking of the bread, people being able to recognize the presence of Jesus right there with them, and Jesus, as a consequence with that accompaniment, igniting the hearts of these disciples. So thinking, that is the spirituality of the Quinto Encuentro. So when we think about that in the context of immigration, this is how we talk about these issues. How is it that the church, how is it that the Gospels are calling us to go and take the first step to go towards those people who are suffering these circumstances?
And this immigration issue was only one of 9.
Yes.
8 other topics. People had chosen those specific areas of interest of their own. Did they get to stay with the one topic, or were they, over the experience, able to cover 2? Or how was it that the group was focusing on their issue?
If my memory serves me well, we stayed within that one issue. Yeah. And what we did is that we chose facilitators who would guide the conversation. So first of all, we had a working document. Every single diocese of the region who did the Encuentro, which was every diocese in the region except for Hawaii, we sent conclusions. We sent our conclusions to the regional committee. The regional committee put all this information, all the voices of the people who participating in the diocese and Encuentros together into this working document.
Wow.
And they review all those voices. They came out with these 9 areas that were the main topics that were arising in all these voices in all these dioceses. And then they were the areas that were given to us to choose one of those. So once we had chosen our area, we had also assigned facilitators. And we tried to look for people who were working and active in that specific area. So we tried to look for people who were either in their ministry or their work, or whatever it is that they're doing, focusing specifically on that area, so that they could understand what we were talking about, so that they could guide the conversation along. We also had secretaries who had training to make sure that we didn't miss anything of what people were saying, to make sure that we could capture the essence of the conversations that were happening in those small groups in these specific areas.
Is there anything else about the regional Encuentro that you want to talk before we purposefully move to the next level? Anything left to cover from the Visalia experience of being the hosting diocese for all of these 1,300 people of God?
So I would say the reactions of people, the response of the people of God. It was very interesting to see how we came to this Encuentro not knowing what to expect. Over 1,000 people coming, not knowing exactly what to expect, and being able to leave energized, being able to leave with a lot of hope, being able to leave that place feeling that I was heard, that my voice is counting, that I can be part of the conversation and I can be part of some kind of solution to this specific need that we are talking about. And it wasn't just that we focused on those specific 9 areas and we never got to hear what was happening on the other sections, because we had plenary sessions where secretaries from this area or that area would come and they would say to the whole congregation what we were discussing over there. So we got a feeling about all these areas, and we got a feeling of hope that something can be done because we are becoming active in our church. Because we are not just people who go to Mass every Sunday and that's it. We are participating in this ongoing discussion. And when we understand that it has been historically through the Encuentro processes that Hispanic ministry in the United States has developed, then we understand that this is not just a one-time meeting, that everything is staying right there, that nothing is going to go forward into the future. We understand that what we are doing in this moment, it's really a historical moment that is going to shape how Hispanic ministry is being done, at least in this case, in the regional level.
So, energized and encouraged and inspired and motivated, animated going forward, what was the next place to bring all that energy and sense of purpose, sense of being heard, sense of being in solidarity with a large group? Then what?
So the next step in the Encuentro process was the national Encuentro. So the Encuentro processes have always begun at the base level, have always begun at the parish. So we listen to the parish, we do consultation, we evangelize in the parish, we move on to the diocesan level. From there, we move on to the regional level, and from there, we move on to the national level. So on moving up, we're bringing all the voices that we've been able to collect. We, even if not everyone attends at the national level, those people who attend are bringing the voices of the voices that they heard in all this process. So the National Encuentro happened just last year, in September of last year. It happened in Texas. There were over 3,000 people participating in the National Encuentro. We had over 100 bishops. There were 125 bishops. And they were very active as well in the discussions. I mean, the Encuentro is coming from the bishops. So they were the ones, they were key in this National Encuentro.
Wow.
It was a very exciting experience for the same reason. You've been hearing the voices of the people from your own parish, then from your own diocese, from your region, and now you get to hear people and hear the experiences of people from the other side of the country, people from the north, south, east, and west of the United States, and you realize that we're all here for the same reason. We are trying to see how we, as Hispanics in the United States, in the Catholic Church, can become active in this universal church that is for everyone, that is inviting us to become active members of the church, missionary disciples.
How many might have been able to join from our diocese as part of the national gathering?
Oh, Jim, that's a logistic question. And I was reviewing the numbers. It was something like 60 people from our diocese.
Wow, great.
I'm going to say 60 people right now, and then I will review and update you guys on the specific number.
It's great to think that we not only were able to have had such a very positive response from the parishes, because there were maybe 57 or 58 that were involved. Great success on getting that many to be involved. Then to know the regional you hosted, but then to be able to have about 60 missionary disciples on fire going to Texas. Tell us about the experience that you had in Texas at the national gathering.
Yeah. So it was really amazing, Jim. We were all in one building. It was a huge resort, by the way, and we were all in the same place. So everywhere you looked, there were always people either with the shirts of Quinto Encuentro or with their name tags. You would see so many clergy members, either bishops, priests, deacons, religious women. You would see lady participating, all of us conversating. You would see so many different areas of ministry that we wanted to discuss because we care about these many different issues. There were 28 ministry areas to discuss at the national level.
Oh, so the 9 becomes 28.
Yes, when you look at the national consensus of the things that we want to discuss and the things that we want to become active in those things. It was very empowering to see all the young adults active in there as well. One of those nights that we were over there, all the young adults had the opportunity to have dinner with the bishops. So we sat in round tables, and each round table was assigned one bishop. And then over dinner, we had the opportunity to have a conversation with one bishop. And that was one of the best moments to me personally of the Encuentro.
Wow.
To be able to sit with other young adults from all over the country and to be able to speak to one bishop about anything we wanted to discuss, about things that we found important, about things that we wanted to ask the bishops, and that was great.
Who was your hosting bishop? And then tell us about Bishop Ochoa's presence, which you said was very, very positive. But let's go with the bishop that you said was so awesome. Who was that?
I think it was Bishop Cota,
Nice.
who had recently been assigned to another diocese here in California.
Wow.
And who had worked a lot in Fresno. So that was my entryway. So, by the way, I'm from
nice.
Fresno, because I knew who Bishop Cota was.
Cool.
So we had this conversation, and everyone was talking in that table. And yeah, we got to have very honest conversations with bishops. And we got to receive a blessing from our bishops. And one of the moments that I felt like my heart just overflowing was when the people who were facilitating the Encuentro, which by the way was Brenda Noriega. In company
Yay,
with someone
Brenda.
else.
She gets lunch with the Pope when she goes to
Yes.
Panama.
Yeah.
Then she's a big leader.
Yeah.
You've got big shoes that you're filling, but
Oh, geez, yeah.
you are fulfilling them.
So they led us into now us, the young adults, praying
Wow.
for the bishops.
Nice.
And I had never done that, at a personal level.
Wow.
Praying for another bishop, just, face to face. So that was my experience with that dinner with the young adults and the bishops. Then Bishop Ochoa, he went with us to the National Encuentro. Bishop Ochoa has always been very active in making sure that we're inviting the parishes to participate in the Encuentro process. He was at our diocesan Encuentro the whole day. And that can be very tiring because people keep wanting to approach him and ask him questions. He took the time to go on the stage and answer like a Q&A with so many people right there. So that shows his care and his interest in this Encuentro process.
Nice.
At the National Encuentro, he led the conversation on migrant ministry. So he was the bishop assigned to that specific conversation, and I think it's because of the legacy of the Diocese of Fresno with migrant ministry. I mean, when we think about names over here, I mean, obviously we can think about Severino Gonzalez and all the work that he did for so many years in that office. So for sure, the Diocese of Fresno has, I had big shoes to fill.
But
not just Brenda, but all the legacy of Hispanic ministry in the Diocese of Fresno.
Let me tell you, we got 30 seconds. I'm going to tell you, this was the perfect introductory program with Benito Medrano because we focused exclusively on the Encuentro experience and what that was for him. When we have Benito back, we have so many other areas of ministry that we're going to discuss. Can't thank you enough, Benito, for being such a great guest, sharing your personal experience of the Encuentro and how much it's helped you become in touch with your own vocation as a missionary disciple. Thank you. God bless. We'll have you back next time.
Thank you very much.